They told me I should have gotten my bonus in writing, so I made sure they got nothing in writing either. When I landed my very first job straight out of grad school, I thought I was set. I was eager, inexperienced, and ready to prove myself. Our small team was tasked with supporting a massive client, and one of their first demands was almost laughable. They wanted us to prototype a complex technical solution that even seasoned professionals thought was impossible. Somehow, because I was the only one with the right background, the burden fell on me. Everyone else just managed while I shouldered the work. At the start, my boss reassured me. He promised that if I delivered, I'd get a hefty bonus, 30% of my salary. Supposedly, this money was already earmarked by the client and would be routed directly to me. It sounded amazing, but being new to the corporate world, I didn't think to get it in writing. That was my first mistake. Over the next 2 years, I practically lived and breathed the project. I stayed late, learned new skills in my off hours, and pushed myself harder than ever before. Against all odds, I succeeded. My boss and the client paraded my work around at international conferences, taking credit for the breakthrough and calling it their proprietary solution. The client made money, the company made money, and I kept waiting for that bonus. Every few months, I'd ask about it. Every time, I was reassured, it's coming, but nothing ever came. By the 3rd year, the project was the pride of both companies. The client wanted me to continue transitioning everything over, and I was even sent for months of specialized training. At that point, I was the only person alive who could run the system. My contract was about to expire, so we began discussing a new one. They offered me a nice salary bump, but I asked about the missing bonus one last time. That's when my boss looked me dead in the eye and said, "What bonus? You should have gotten that in writing." The words hit like a punch in the gut. Worse still, I found out the exact funds that had been promised to me were instead earmarked to hire an intern. My reward for carrying the project for years was being replaced by someone cheaper. That was the breaking point. But here's where their arrogance came back to bite them. They hadn't gotten anything in writing from me either. My new contract was drafted, but I hadn't signed it. There was no email, no letter, nothing official saying I'd stay. They just assumed I would. And that assumption was about to cost them everything. On the final day of my old contract, I walked out as usual. I left my work phone and pager in my locker. I logged out of all accounts. I didn't resign. I didn't give notice. I didn't even say goodbye. The next morning, when they expected me to be there, I simply wasn't. And legally, they had no hold on me. The silence was deafening. My inbox filled with emails. My phone buzzed with calls, and people even reached out through personal channels. I ignored every single one. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I disappeared, leaving them stranded with a project no one else understood. The fallout was brutal. The client walked away, furious. Other clients soon followed, after being neglected when staff were pulled into the failing project. The company bled money. My boss spiraled into substance abuse. His marriage collapsed, and eventually, the company itself became a shell of what it once was, before being swallowed up by a competitor. All because they didn't keep their promise and didn't bother to secure mine. As for me, I had burned every professional bridge. It was career suicide in the short term. I lived off savings, struggled to find footing without references, and had to rebuild from scratch in a new city. But slowly, my skills spoke louder than my reputation. Over time, I rebuilt my career, stronger and more independent than before. Now, a decade later, I'm a stakeholder at my current workplace. I'm developing a new version of that very same project I once abandoned, with plans to showcase it at an international conference. If the old clients happen to be there, watching me present the updated version of the project they once stole credit for, well, that would be the sweetest bonus of all. Looking back, I know it was reckless. I know it was fueled by anger and bruised pride. But in the end, the company taught me one lesson, and I threw it right back at them. They said I should have gotten my bonus in writing. They never got my commitment in writing either, and that's what destroyed them.